You know, when you or I think about the human body, we usually default to picturing it as like a biological machine.
Right, yeah, like a really advanced fleshy engine or something.
Exactly. You put fuel in, you get energy out. And if a part breaks down, you go to a doctor who is essentially just a mechanic to fix it.
Hmm.
But what if we completely flip that paradigm? What if your body isn't just a physical machine at all, but rather this vessel that comes preloaded with a hidden conditional operating system?
Oh, it completely shifts the conversation. I mean, you're moving entirely away from, cellular biology and stepping directly into this realm of conditional logic, but on a spiritual, almost alchemical level.
Right, and that is exactly the premise we are exploring in today's deep dive. We're looking at this highly mystical, deeply fascinating text from 2012. It's by an author named Zhu Feng, and it's titled The Eight Miracle Programs of the Human Body.
Yeah, it's quite the read.
It really is. And the core argument here is that you, like you listening to this right now, have eight distinct dormant subroutines just lying in wait inside your biology.
Just waiting for the right prompt.
Exactly. And when very specific psychological or spiritual conditions are met, these programs just trigger automatically. And they cause everything from instant internal healing to, well, spontaneous molecular dissolution.
Which is obviously, a massive leap from a standard immune system response.
Just a bit, yeah.
And just to set the ground rules for you listening, we aren't examining these claims today as, like, peer-reviewed medical science.
No, definitely not.
Right. We aren't prescribing anything. Instead, we are stepping fully into Shui Feng's philosophical architecture. The mission today is really to decode the internal logic of this mystical worldview and to understand how, in this specific framework, consciousness directly commands physical reality.
Right, so we are leaving the biology textbook at the door for this one.
Exactly.
And if we're looking at the body as an operating system, I think the most relatable place to start is with the crashes. You know, the times when the inputs get so chaotic that the human system basically just hits a fatal error.
The overload states. Yeah. According to Sui Feng, negative emotions aren't just, passing feelings that make you uncomfortable.
Hmm.
If they're pushed to the extreme, they literally execute destructive physiological programs.
So let's look at program 3, which is simply called poison release. Because initially I read this and I thought, oh, he's just talking about a stress response.
Right, like standard cortisol stuff.
Yeah, you get furious, your cortisol spikes, adrenaline floods your system, and over time, that stress takes a fatal toll on your heart. But that's not the mechanism he's describing at all, is it?
Not at all. I mean, that's applying modern Western medicine to a very Eastern cultivation concept. Shu Feng isn't talking about a slow degradation over decades.
Okay, so what is the actual trigger?
He argues that when human anger and fury reach their absolute blinding peak, a switch is just flipped. It is pure conditional logic. If rage hits 100%,
Execute poison release.
exactly, execute program 3, the body instantly saturates itself with actual, literal toxins.
But how? Like if I'm sitting in traffic and I get absolute unhinged road rage, where is this poison suddenly coming from? My body just makes it.
In this worldview, it's all about energetic frequency. See, anger isn't just a thought, right? It's a violent, chaotic vibration.
Okay.
So when that vibration reaches a critical threshold, it fundamentally alters the alchemical makeup of your cells.
Oh.
The body doesn't generate the poison from an external source. The life force itself sours. It becomes venomous simply as an automatic, instantaneous reaction to that peak state of rage.
It's like your own energy turns against you because you fed it the wrong frequency.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
So if extreme anger actively poisons the physical hardware, how does this philosophy explain the mind breaking down? Like, what is the mechanism when the system just can't process the emotional data it's being fed?
Well, that brings us to program 6, which Suvin categorizes as going mad.
The insanity program.
Right. This subroutine triggers when a person's thoughts become completely, hopelessly entangled. But what's really intriguing is how the author breaks down the mechanics of this madness. He specifically divides it by gender.
Yeah, I noticed that in the text, and honestly, it felt a bit rigid at first glance. What's the underlying logic there?
He frames it entirely around how energy becomes blocked. According to Shufeng, women are more susceptible to going mad through deep emotional entanglement.
It's like over-processing.
Sort of. Imagine a web of feelings that becomes so complex and inescapable that the mind simply collapses inward. It's an implosion of energy.
Like a tangled knot that just gets pulled way too tight.
Exactly. Now, men, on the other hand, are described as going mad through severe emotional repression.
Oh.
Yeah, they deny themselves any relief or outlet for their feelings, so instead of an implosion, it's an explosion.
Oh, wow.
The internal pressure builds up against this rigid wall until the containment vessel just shatters.
So even though the behaviors look totally different on the outside, getting lost in a maze of emotions versus refusing to acknowledge emotions at all, the fundamental mechanism is identical.
Yes.
The natural flow of energy is blocked, there's no channel for release, and the system just executes the madness program.
Precisely. In both cases, the mind loses its elasticity. It either knots itself up or it shatters from the pressure.
Okay, so anger causes a poison crash, and blocked energy causes a madness crash. But what happens when the ego doesn't block energy, but instead tries to consume everything? Like what happens when it expands without any boundaries or humility whatsoever?
Then you trigger Program 7, which deals with becoming possessed.
Okay, this one fascinated me, because the text states that when a person's desires inflate completely unchecked, they cross this threshold when they become entirely irrational, completely unreasonable, and they just start babbling incomprehensible words.
Right, the babbling is a key symptom.
And Zufeng explicitly calls this state channeling. And this is where I really stumbled.
How so? Like, why did that trip you up?
Well, if you look at New Age circles or a lot of esoteric spiritual traditions, channeling is the ultimate goal.
Oh, right, yeah.
People spend years meditating, trying to open themselves up to channel higher powers or spirit guides. They see it as this profound spiritual gift. But Xuefeng is framing this exact same phenomenon as a catastrophic malfunction. Why is channeling a bad thing in his framework?
It really comes down to identity and consent. You're right that other traditions view it as a gift, a way of receiving higher wisdom. But Xuefeng's architecture operates very differently.
Okay, how so?
In this worldview, when your ego inflates so massively that you believe you are entitled to everything, when you lack any humility, you create a spiritual vacuum.
A vacuum, meaning you empty yourself out.
Meaning you lose your center. By
Yeah.
wanting to be the master of the universe, you actually abandon your post as the master of your own mind.
Oh, I see.
You basically leave the front door wide open. So this channeling isn't a higher enlightened state, it is a hostile takeover.
A hijack?
Exactly. The original self is completely lost. Because the individual let their desires run rampant, a darker spirit or a demonic force simply steps into the vacuum and takes the wheel.
That is so creepy.
Right. They are babbling because they are literally no longer the ones speaking. The system hasn't just crashed, the user has been entirely locked out of their own hardware.
That is a terrifying mechanism. By trying to become everything, you become nothing but a puppet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so those are the overload states, the malware, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Poison, madness, and possession. Let's pivot, because the text doesn't just focus on the crashes, right? What happens when we look at the optimization side, like when someone achieves perfect mental discipline?
We enter a completely different paradigm. If chaos executes destruction, perfect order executes miracles. And the first example of this is Program 5, which triggers supernatural powers.
I think we need to move away from the computer analogies for just a second to really grasp this. Because if I focus really hard on a task, say I'm an athlete in the zone or musician in a flow state,
Right.
I perform better, but Xuefeng is claiming something way beyond just peak human performance here.
Oh, absolutely. He argues that if a person can focus on a single phenomenon or object for a prolonged period, without even the slightest microscopic hint of disorder, distraction, or stray thought, they unlock actual supernatural abilities.
Like magic.
In a sense, they can manipulate reality without hindrance.
But what is the connection there? How does staring at a single object with perfect focus suddenly allow you to bend the laws of physics?
To understand the how, you really have to understand the foundational rule of this philosophy, and that is, consciousness dictates physical reality.
Okay.
Right now, your reality is bound by physical laws because your mind is scattered. You're constantly validating the physical world with all your chaotic thoughts. Your thoughts have friction.
Mm-hmm.
But if you achieve absolute pinpoint focus, you remove all mental friction.
Like reaching absolute zero, but for consciousness?
Yes, exactly. And when there is zero mental friction, the barrier between the mind and the external world just dissolves.
Wow.
If your consciousness is perfectly, flawlessly ordered, the physical reality around you must mirror that order. Reality becomes entirely malleable to your will because you're no longer separate from it.
That makes total sense within that mystical framework.
Yeah.
But what if you take the exact opposite approach?
What do you mean?
Well, instead of intensely focusing your mind to a laser point on one single thing, what if you focus on absolutely nothing.
Ah, right. That is program 4, elixir release. And the mechanics of this are arguably even more profound.
Okay, break that down for me.
The trigger condition here is that consciousness must enter an ethereal, perfectly empty state. This requires a total dissolution of the ego, zero attachments, no form, and just a continuous, unbroken feeling of deep joy.
Emptiness and joy. But how does feeling empty trigger an internal elixir? Like, how does thinking about nothing cure a terminal illness? Because the text claims it can literally make diseases vanish.
It's because of how Shufeng defines disease. In this worldview, disease isn't just a random biological failure, right? It's a physical manifestation of internal friction.
Friction again.
Yes, your attachments, your ego, your anxieties, they are constantly grinding against your natural state. That grinding creates the conditions for illness.
So the ego is essentially a pathogen.
That's a really great way to look at it. So when you achieve that state of total emptiness, you completely remove the pathogen. You stop fighting the natural flow of the universe.
You just let go.
Right. And when the ego dissolves, the body's innate perfection, the original unblemished blueprint of your life force floods back in.
And that returning life force is the elixir.
Exactly. The body heals itself instantly because the thing that was making it sick, the ego, is gone.
It's incredible. It frames healing not as something you have to actively fight for, but as something that happens automatically the moment you truly surrender.
Which actually provides a perfect bridge to the final 3 programs.
Yeah, because up until now, we've talked about the mind altering the physical body. But programs 2, 8, and 1 go way beyond just being healthy or having focus. They deal with entirely transcending the physical plane.
They really are the ultimate overrides. Let's look at program 2, rescue. The trigger here is extreme. When a person is in mortal danger, completely isolated, with absolutely no possibility of physical aid, praying to divine spirits triggers instant salvation.
A literal miracle. But again, let's dig into the why. Why does it only trigger when there is no physical aid available?
Because of the mechanism of absolute surrender we just talked about. As long as you think you can save yourself, your ego is in control, right?
Yeah.
It's maintaining the illusion of separation.
I can fix this. I can survive this.
Exactly. But in a moment of mortal terror with zero physical options, the ego finally gives up. It shatters. That absolute pure plea for help bridges the gap between the microcosm of the individual and the macrocosm of the divine.
Well,
The resonance is so pure that the universe intervenes.
the moment you stop relying on the physical world, the spiritual world catches you.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Right.
And that theme of internal perfection carries right into Program 8, Ultimate Bliss.
Yes, program 8 is the highest emotional frequency imaginable. It triggers when a person's inner world becomes absolutely flawless,
Flawless, huh?
meaning every ounce of pessimism, negativity, and darkness is eradicated. It is replaced entirely by gratitude, truth, goodness, and beauty.
It's not just feeling happy, it's becoming the literal embodiment of love.
Exactly. And when that frequency of pure love is reached, the physical form is no longer relevant in the same way. The consciousness experiences what Shufeng calls ultimate bliss. It is a state of perpetual grace.
Which is beautiful. It
Yeah.
really is. But I have to be honest, as profound as Rescue and Ultimate Bliss are, they pale in comparison to the absolute wildness of Program 1.
I had a feeling we'd end up here.
I've been waiting to talk about this since I first read your notes.
Yeah.
Program 1, Spontaneous Combustion.
Which is known in certain deep cultivation traditions as the rainbow body.
Right, so, okay, break this down for me. We aren't talking about a person suddenly catching fire, right? There are no actual flames here. What is the mystical mechanism Shufeng is describing?
It is arguably the most spectacular claim in the entire text. It is not combustion as in burning carbon. It is described as molecular drift or molecular fission.
Molecular drip. Okay, how do you trigger that?
It requires the absolute pinnacle of internal order. All of a person's life energy must be concentrated into a single infinitesimal point within the body.
Just perfect singular focus.
Yes. When that ultimate state of concentration is held, the physical form loses its density. And when the consciousness finally decides it is time to leave the physical world, the entire molecular structure of the body simply unbinds.
The molecules they just let go of each other.
They do, but they don't just vanish into thin air. The consciousness acts like a powerful magnetic north. As the soul exits, the molecules drift outward, following the exact trajectory of the departing consciousness.
Oh my God.
The source text describes the visual effect as being like a comet streaking through space. A radiant tale of dissolving molecules following the path of the soul right into the cosmos.
That image is just staggering.
Yeah.
You spend your entire life optimizing your inner world, clearing out the anger, dissolving the ego, achieving perfect focus, and the reward is that when you finally depart, your physical body doesn't decay.
Mm-hmm.
It turns into stardust and acts as a contrail for your soul. It's the ultimate proof that the mind was in charge of the matter the entire time.
It perfectly illustrates Huafeng's core philosophy. The physical body isn't a prison. It is simply a temporary configuration of energy held together by consciousness that can be gracefully disassembled at will when the curriculum of this life is complete.
So when we pull all the way back and look at these 8 miracle programs as a whole, from the toxic internal alchemy of rage to the hijack hardware of possession, all the way to the molecular comet tail of the rainbow body, what is the ultimate takeaway here? Like, what is the core message of this 2012 text?
Xuefeng synthesizes it all by invoking the concept of a holographic universe. He uses a very ancient, very famous idiom, quote, "To see a world in a grain of sand, a Bodhi in a leaf."
The idea that the macrocosm, the entire universe, is perfectly reflected in the microcosm of a single thing.
Precisely. Just as the universe contains infinite, unfathomable mysteries, so too does your physical body. It isn't just flesh and bone, it is a mirror of the cosmos.
Right.
The text concludes with a promise that with utmost sincerity, anyone can unlock these mysteries. As the philosophy states, utmost sincerity can crack even metal and stone. The keys are entirely internal.
It completely reframes the way you think about your own daily existence. And I think that is why this deep dive matters to you listening right now. You don't have to believe in molecular drift or mystical elixirs as literal scientific facts to extract something incredibly valuable from this.
The metaphor itself is immensely powerful.
Exactly. Even if you view these 8 programs purely as a poetic, philosophical map of the mind-body connection, the core message holds true. This text frames the exploration of our own inner workings, not as a chore or like a medical anxiety, but as a pathway to deep joy.
Mm-hmm.
It suggests that our future is dictated entirely by how we manage our internal frequency.
It removes the reliance on the external world and places the ultimate responsibility and the ultimate power squarely in the hands of your own consciousness. The architecture is already there, you just have to choose what you want to execute.
Which brings us back to that central premise. Your consciousness as the admin password to your biology.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a world where we are constantly looking outward for fixes. We want a pill to cure our stress, a distraction to numb our tangled thoughts, and external validation to soothe our ego. But what if the controls were inside the whole time?
That's the real question.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day. If Xuefeng's holographic universe is even partially true, if our bodies really are running these extreme conditional subroutines based purely on the frequency of our thoughts, what undocumented programs might you be unknowingly triggering right now, simply through your everyday habits, your hidden resentments, or your quiet moments of joy? Have we become so reliant on external mechanics that we've completely forgotten the admin passwords to our own internal miracles?